Hey guys, this is Rasanique and this is She Wolf Alchemy. So today we're talking about allowing yourself to be loved.
So, the art of learning to be loved is long and complicated. We often feel like because we know how to love, we know how to receive love, but this isn't always the case. For some people, they have always been the doer, the go to person, mother, hen, the caretaker, protector, etc., etc. And sometimes when we take on these roles, we excuse the lack of love given back because we consciously or unconsciously are convinced ourselves that it's okay because our role is to provide, to do, so we don't require others in our lives to do for us, or we don't feel comfortable with others who actually try to do for us. Is this something you can relate to, Rest? Or do you feel you know how to be loved?
I am a work in process on learning to allow other people to just love me. Um, I definitely feel like I know how to love, despite what some people may say. I know how to do it when I want to. Uh, there definitely might be some objections if we was in a courtroom, but I know how to when I want to. But it's a work in process for me to receive love, to accept love. And I say that while saying that, I want to make sure I'm clear. I have definitely been in loving relationships and I've been in love. But it's just always been something that's been kind of a struggle for me. Kind of like we always talk about with having secure attachments. That's something I'm still working towards. And I feel like there's a part of me that's always scared to say yes. Like, even if I get there, I feel like there's a part of me that's always like, girl, you just like him not answering the phone one time away from you going back to your old ways. Like, there's always a part of me that's like, oh, but how long can you keep this up? But I think it's definitely something that I'm learning. Like, I'm learning to take compliments without downplaying myself. That's something that's very hard for me. I'm usually very sarcastic. So I usually, when someone compliments me, I have a very sarcastic comeback. It feels very weird. It feels very selfish. It feels very full of myself to accept compliments. So that's something I'm learning. I'm learning to be vulnerable, which is a huge part of allowing yourself to be loved. I'm still learning to let others do for me, which is something that's really hard for me. I'm so used to doing so much for myself. Again, something we talked about on the show, hyper independence. We praise it like it's a good thing, but it's really not. It's usually an unhealthy coping mechanism for something else. So all these are things that I am learning. I'm still actively learning. I'm still, little kid with their training wheels on. Like, I'm doing it. Please don't take the training wheels off. That's kind of how I feel on the topic. Like, I'm doing it, but also I'm not dating now. So that's like that training wheels part. Like, eventually somebody is going to be like, hey, take the training wheels off. And I'm not sure how this shit's going to go. I got to be 100% honest with y'all. It's so much easier to be loving and understanding in theory than it is when you have an actual person you have to practice it with. So yes, I am incorporating all of that and using all that to teach myself how to just accept love and not run from it, not push back on it, really accept it in a pure, healthy way. What about you, Neat?
I think that I'm not even sure if I know how to accept it because I don't feel like it's been given fully lately. But I just know I know how to give it, but then I get resentful when I don't feel like it's given back to me how I feel it should be. Um, because like what I was saying earlier, it's just like you're so used to being a giver, and I think that's my role now. Like
Mm-hmm.
I hate that that's my role because I don't feel like before I used to be so free spirited and everything, and shoot, I feel like they was giving to me way more. I was giving to myself. But now it's just like I feel like that's what I have to give. I don't know if it's because that's how I gave before in the relationship, and the one that I knew was reciprocated. So it's hard for me sometimes to like receive it back or have time for myself to receive it. at
Yeah.
all because I'm so used to just like giving it, giving it, giving it. And then I kind of shut down when it's not, when I don't feel it's giving back. But then other times I don't even know how to receive it at all. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, like
Yeah.
even sometimes compliments I don't know how to receive. I just, okay. And I hurry up and change the subject for some reason. And I noticed that about myself. And I'm like, but why? So it's something I'm still trying to figure out and understand for real. And I don't know if it's because I had so many times where I had to not think about love because I didn't want to be hurt. So it's just like, well, I don't really know how to receive it at all now. It's something that I'm discovering presently. I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure it out presently.
Yeah. And I think it's not as uncommon as we think it is. I think because just the way that our culture is right now, especially in regards to love, it's very like everybody wants me, everybody loves me. So I think a lot of times people don't want to show that that's something they're struggling with, receiving love, because then it can be this perception that no one wants to love you. But it's not that. A lot of the times it's that no one taught us how to receive love.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot, I mean, there's a lot of people who weren't taught how to love, but for a lot of us, we were shown. We were shown somewhat how to love. We see it on a movie, but for a lot of us, no one ever set us down, especially those of us that have doer type personality, mother hen type personality, boss type personality, hyper independent type personalities. No one really ever set us down and was like, yo, that's cool. But like also, make sure you allow people to do for you sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, you're great. Take that. Nope, just let that compliment marinate. There needs to be no but or and. There needs to not be a joke. You don't need to change the subject. I think it's a lot more common. I feel like I see this in practice a lot. When I'm talking to clients, I see it all the time where they're talking and they're like, I'm in this relationship. Or sometimes it's not even relationships, because I think we think about love and we automatically go to a romantic type of sense. But I've also seen it in like relationship with siblings, relationship with kids, relationships just of all types, with best friends and so forth. And people are like, I am happy in this type of relationship, but I feel so drained and I feel so exhausted. And it's like, yes, because you can be happy and also acknowledge that you are not receiving the love you want, or that you yourself are sabotaging their efforts to love you. So even though you're happy, you're having a time of your life, we are meant to receive love. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think that we don't acknowledge that enough, that like a lot of us actually really don't know how to just let someone love us. And then we're walking around mad and angry, like, but I give so much love out and nobody loves me. And it's like, okay, but did you allow people to love you?
Yeah, that's a good point. I know one time I had said, like, I spoke up and said, okay, I feel like I'm giving way more, or you rely much more on me, but you never check in on me or my feelings, my emotions. How am I doing today? And then when that person started to do it, I don't know, I kind of like clammed up and didn't want to open up. I'm like,
Yeah.
but why? But why are you doing that? This is what you asked for. I was like, but I don't want to talk about it. We can just go ahead and talk about your stuff. But I'm like, but that's what you asked for. So it is like a learning thing for me now, and I don't feel like it was before. I don't know why I'm like, we switching. Like, this year is my emotional year. Like, I am way more emotional this year, but it's just like, I don't understand it. But
finally it's somebody else's turn to be emotional. Okay, so please give these feelings to someone else. I've learned my lesson.
But yeah, I just thought about that when you was talking. I was like, well, yeah, I did do that like recently. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it goes back to that self-sabotage and having those personal conversations with yourself, checking in with yourself. It's so important, guys, to check in with yourself. I think a lot of times we think like, I'm me. I don't need to do a check-in. Yes, the fuck you do. A lot of us are on autopilot. A lot of us are doing things unconsciously and have no idea why, and haven't sat and thought about it. So we keep repeating the same cycles and then wondering why we're miserable, wondering why nothing's changed, wondering why the things that we want aren't happening. And it's like, okay, do a check-in. What is it that we are doing? Why is it that we are doing this? Let's sit and think about this. kind of like you said, I actually same thing. Like my past, I tend to attract people who are emotionally unavailable. We talked about this last episode because for a long time I was emotionally unavailable. So like it felt normal to me to be happy and also unfulfilled in relationships and dating and so forth. Like that was just like, yeah, it's this is what the love thing is, right? But I actually did, like you, had a relationship. Actually, my longest relationship was with somebody who forced their love on me and did not care that I did not want it, did not care that I resisted, did not care that I emotionally shut down. And then, like, when I felt back to it, he was like, no, because I figured, when I push too much, you run away. So I'm gonna just let you be, sit there and stew. And I was unhappy in that relationship. And for a long time, I couldn't figure out why, because even now, like when I talk about this particular person, I express happiness, I express joy, I express, like, oh, he was an amazing person. He is an amazing person. That was a good relationship, blah, blah, blah. Um, and I have asked myself over time, like, then why can't you be happy? This is someone who like wanted to spend the rest of their life with you. This is someone who was very romantic, who like really very open communication person. I always talk about his feelings. Was a living, breathing 6'1" Care Bear. Like just what do you want to do today? What do you want to talk about? I was constantly like, bro, if you don't sit in a corner somewhere and answer my questions in like 3-word sentences. But same thing where I had to check in with myself, like, yo, why is it that when you meet those type of people, you either self-sabotage or you're like, I can't do it. And why do you feel more comfortable with people who are emotionally distant? The conclusion I came to is like, oh, because you feel uncomfortable accepting love. You don't really know how to do that in romantic relationships. In other areas of my life, it's fine. It's a lot easier, but romantic relationships have always been kind of hard for me. It's always been like, oh, I want this thing. I want that type of love and so forth. Also, I'm absolutely fucking terrified of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's at the core for a lot of people is that receiving love seems terrifying. And I know for me, one of my biggest things is because what if I get used to this feeling of receiving love and it's taken away? I've been operating without having to be open in that way for so long, and I'm fine. But what if I allow myself to be vulnerable? I allow myself to be that level of emotionally intimate, and then I allow myself to get used to this, and then it can be taken away. I don't know if I can come back from that because now I'm open to all this mushy stuff and I'm not no hardcore emotional gangster no more. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't want to go through that.
I keep going through that, yeah.
Yeah. So when we're talking about learning to be loved, what we're saying is like, first, let's break down being loved. Being loved is allowing someone to be truly intimate with you. And we're not talking about sex. We're talking about a level of intimacy that's like, I let you into the deepest parts of my mind. I let you touch my soul. There is a pure vulnerability. There is a trust in this love. And again, we're talking about various types of relationships, not just romantic. So like with a lot of things, when we're talking about love, we're talking about relationships, we're talking about being open to loving, we get a lot of our knowledge about relationships, about love and that sort of thing from our homes, from our immediate families, childhood shit. We talk about this all the time. You see our families interacting. Sometimes it's the way they interact with us. Sometimes it's the way we interact with them. Other times it could be a marriage, it could be a boyfriend, girlfriend, it could be a sibling relationship, but it can even go on beyond that. Sometimes what we learn about love and relationships is just merely from early moments in our life. It can be your first relationship. You could have had parents who were extremely communicative, had a great relationship, households, you got to be a child, all the Disney fairy tale shit. But your first relationship could have been a long one and it could have been really dysfunctional. And it kind of could have shaped and formed to you, oh, this is what relationships are though. Or this is what relationships are for me. Now, also, a lot of times in our family household, it shapes how we communicate with others and what we feel is okay to communicate and what we feel is okay to display. From what we learned in our households, even in the most loving, secure homes. And I want to express that because I actually talked to an individual last week who made me realize there's a lot of people who are afraid to really speak on their childhood and really be honest with themselves about why they are the way they are or why they have certain unique emotional patterns. And it was because they felt like, no, if I admit this would be like saying my family was bad or dysfunctional or saying, and that's not it. You can have good parents and they don't know that them doing this caused this reaction in you. And now this is a lifelong pattern. That happens in good functional households as well. People are like, no, my parents are great, blah, blah, blah. And they won't allow themselves to get to the root of that problem because they want to protect their family's image. They want to protect their parents, parenthood and all this stuff. And it was like this disconnect between like, hey, just because there were certain things that happened in your childhood that left this type of effect on you doesn't mean your parents were bad parents. Parents are just people, y'all. Parents are just people. They do the best that they can. Also, there are times your parents do something that's perfectly fine and just your specific personality takes it and morphs it and takes that information and turns it into something that is kind of an unhealthy pattern.
I think I think I noticed it more as I became a parent. Like, oh, I get it. Mistakes, it don't mean anything bad from it. It's just this child might be more emotional or this child might take it that way. Or you just didn't know better as yourself. I mean, as a parent, you know what I mean? So,
oh, definitely.
But I also agree, like, I'm probably that person too, like, no, my parents were good because I don't want to disregard anything that they do as a parent altogether. But I think I'm more compassionate with them now. Whereas before I could have been mad at different things or ways that they operated, but
yes, with your family. So we learn from the communication in our family as well, which we bring it to relationships. If it's okay for us to be attentive, to have attention on us, or should we dismiss our emotions? Or is communication or maybe even love unpredictable? These are things that we're learning early on. And again, you can be in a good family, a healthy family, and a semi-normal family. And I say semi-normal because I really don't think there's a such thing as normal families. Even the families like the Brady Bunch got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it doesn't make them bad. It makes them human. We all have a lot of stuff going on, but we pick up on these little cues through our life in our early childhood, our early adulthood, our early teens and so forth. And it tells us unconsciously that, hey, it's not okay for you to demand those type of things because that makes you selfish. And love is actually you closing yourself off for the people you love. Those are the type of things we're learning. Those are the type of things you can be learning as a child, not even realizing it. And then you're bringing that into relationships. You could be learning from your parents' marriage that maybe every 2 years they come and sit y'all down and say, okay, so we're going to get a divorce. No, we not. So yeah, we pick up on those signals and sometimes we just kind of keep some of those things in us that, okay, I can't be attentive. I have to dismiss my own feelings and love in order to be loved. And I think no one really wants to say that out loud. That in my childhood, I found out that I had to dismiss my own feelings to be loved, because it sounds like you're saying, well, my parents taught me, my feelings don't matter and blah, blah, blah. But going back to what we said earlier, there's a lot of times there's stuff we pick up on that was not the intention. They are very loving, caring parents, and their intention was not to teach us that. But that's just how we took it in, and we kept and held on to that. But now as adults, it is our responsibility to unlearn these things.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes I think what really sucks is when you learn, like, I can't be attentive, I have to dismiss my feelings, love is unpredictable, those type of things. It teaches you to suppress your own needs. And that's how you get people in situations where they're in relationships. They're great relationships for the most part, but they don't really allow that person to fully love them. And then they feel themselves in this kind of like, I'm happy, but I also feel unfulfilled. What's going on here? This is this great person. And it's because, yeah, we learned very early on to repress our needs, and we never unlearned that. Okay, Neek. So what about for you? What do you feel like your struggle, because you said this was something that you feel like you struggle with, where that really became a thing for you, where you really started to struggle with accepting love or letting people fulfill your needs?
I think like if we go back to early childhood, mine would be like just seeing my parents like never argue, and they probably did argue, they just didn't do it in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
So to see, like, to think everything has to be perfect,
yeah,
not perfect, that's like, okay, this is not perfect, so we can't do this. Like I literally compare everything to my parents, and I know they had sometimes, but it wasn't told to me until I was older. Any type of thing that was going on, it wasn't told to me till I was older. So that's when I started to be more open to, like, okay, sometimes everything isn't perfect and we had to work through it. But for me to never see how to work through it, that just makes me like, well, we can't, I don't know. It kind of makes me think that everything has to be a perfect way, or in my head, and it's like it can't have all these cracks and everything else going on. Or I would suppress those feelings, come like, well, this is what it has to be to get through it. Like sometimes I suppress it because I'm like, we have to stick together. Like, I don't know. That's how I think sometimes now. And then it leads me to stay in a lot of situations way too long without receiving the love that I need to be receiving. I still don't understand my not receiving it that well. I'm in the midst of trying to figure it out. But the thing is, I have been in a healthy relationship, so I do know what it feels like. And then I don't know if I'm giving excuses or trying to stay in situations to wait to receive love because I want that feeling again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of another thing that I'm like battling through right now as well. But I think if we're going back to parenthood or whatever, going back to childhood, that's where my thing comes, like everything has to be perfect.
You know what my mind immediately thought you were going to go into?
What's that?
I thought, because when you were like, yeah, I don't know why, I really always thought you were going to go into like, because you were the firstborn child, you did a lot. And like, that's how you showed your love. You helped your family. You did a lot. You helped with your younger sisters and stuff a lot. And it kind of puts you in that kind of caretaker role where this is love. I do.
Definitely can talk about that. And then you just observe that, but that is my real life.
Yeah.
Like, that is how I showed it. And that is how I showed go. And what are they doing for me? I can't really put my hands on what they have. Like, yeah. I mean, I know I had celebrate. I probably was the only child that had birthday every year. That's probably because I stood up and said I wanted it. But other than that, it's just like, I know for a fact that I was always giving to my whole family, no matter what. And it's just like, that's how I do show my love. But it just feels like I know for a fact I was helping take care of my younger siblings, and I know for a fact I would make sure them, like, I was the only person cleaning that house because I was the only person doing a lot of the things. Like, I was a doer. I was always a giver, and that's just my role as the oldest. It's kind of stressful being the oldest sometimes. Yeah. So now when I'm in relationships, I just do. Like, I do take on a lot, and it's just like.
And it feels normal to you to take on a lot and have others kind of be there, good, loving towards you, even spoil you, but it's like you're used to doing.
And I didn't know that for real until I got into a relationship where it was reciprocated. He had to slow me down. But before that, I didn't understand it. And in the end, I ended up still take care of him. But I don't regret that or whatever. But it's just like, that's just how I show my love. So it can be like you talked about earlier, how you can just be feeling so drained. Like, you could be in love or you could be happy, but so drained because that person is not giving it back. So I'm really trying to learn how to receive it back and be okay with receiving it and knowing that I do deserve that back. And sometimes I keep going and I get high resentment, like super high resentment. like, bro, I'm doing a lot for you. Why are you not like reciprocating it? But they probably don't know that that's what I want because I don't speak up about it. So I'm sure that's where a lot of my caretakerness comes from. And also the fact that when it's not looking ideal or it's not perfect, I do kind of try to dip out. And then it's like the person, if they're like a passive person, like, okay, bye, I'm gonna go. But the other people like, but what do you mean? Like, let's talk this out. Like, what are you talking about? And we talk it out, and they make me realize, that I'm just trying to run from something that could be worked out. We can talk it through. So I do kind of need a certain type of partner for real in a lot of situations.
So for me, definitely a thing for me. And for me, I think it was, again, I've talked about this a lot. My parents went through a lot during my childhood. Like, once I turned I want to say 11, from ages 11 to 16, there was just a lot of stuff going on in my childhood. And I picked up on hyper independence as a way to minimize myself, because I wanted to make myself smaller because there was just so much going on. I felt like I don't want to add to y'all burdens. I don't want to add to y'all troubles. And so I did that myself. I was like, oh, there's so much. I've talked about it. I had a brother who died early on. He died when he was 17 years old. I was 12 at the time that he died. I was either 12 or 13. And that changed our family dynamic. That turned my mom's world upside down. Then on top of that, that happened when a whole bunch of other very big drama crisis things were going on in that time period. And so because there was just so much, I became super independent very, very early. But I feel like I get younger the older I age. I get more loose. I get more comfortable in my body, myself, my personality. But when I was younger, I feel like I was very serious, and I just kind of got less serious the older I got. But because of that, I felt, because of all that stuff that was going on in my childhood, I learned how to detach emotionally. I learned how to disassociate. I learned how to, just allow myself to dissociate during times of stress, because I was always in stress mode during those periods. And not just because of things that was going on. Some of that was just me, my personality. Some of that is just me and who I am as a human, or who I was as a human being. But because my mind taught me to minimize myself then, it made it hard for me not to minimize my feelings and self-worth in relationships. And so like I said earlier, kept finding myself in relationships with people who are emotionally distant, because I also was emotionally distant. I was not in touch with my emotions. I didn't like getting in touch with my emotions because it wasn't something I was used to doing. And so having that, it put me in a lot of situations where I felt uncomfortable with receiving love. And I met people who were great people. I dated a lot of really great guys. I actually really have no beef or animosity for anybody. I think most of them are amazing people. I have since dated and allowed myself to be vulnerable. And I have since dated and allowed myself to be more open. And I am not at the point I want to be at yet. But I will say, I definitely have grown in that area of allowing myself to not minimize my needs, allowing myself to not be like, my needs are being met, and talking it through with the person and letting them know instead of getting up and leaving. But in that, I was able to work on my minimizing. I was able to work on reciprocity. I was able to work on control issues, which we will get into in a little bit. But that was a big thing I was able to work on. Did not master there. Did not master. It's okay. The next person, good luck to you, sir. We're going to see what happens there. But I was able to work through those things. But I definitely understand like a lot of that did come from childhood. A lot of that did come from just going through a lot during those periods, learning a lot of hard lessons as a kid and carrying that very early on. And because of that, it's why I'm so big on talking to my daughter now, because I recognize that my parents didn't know. There's sometimes I say to my mom now, she's like, you what? Like, you thinking this since she was 6? Like, I'll tell her something, a thought about a situation that happened and how my mind interpreted it. And she'd be like, hold on, for 30 years, you've been thinking this is what happened? That's not what happened. And that happens all the time, especially now that she lives here. But I now recognize that, and I try to use that to talk to my daughter so much, because there's so much that I took on that shaped my personality because I kept it to myself and I saw things and I was like, this is what this means. So I'm forever going to do this unhealthy thing. And I think some of it really could have been stopped if someone stopped and talked to me about certain things. So yeah, now going back to like, okay, if you are someone who has issues with accepting love, what are some of like the key points that they should know? So one, just because you struggle with accepting love before, doesn't mean you're unlovable. Your struggle with accepting love is more about how you interpret love. It's more about your comfort levels with love. It doesn't have anything to do with your lovability or your likability, or if you are a lovable person or not. A lot of times when you have this issue, it's a lot of times rooted in fear. It can be fear in losing a partner. It can be fear of allowing your feelings to get that deep. It can be all types of fears. And a lot of times when you have this kind of struggle, you are the one that ices others out before you guys can get to that chance. So it's not a matter of, I'm not lovable. No one loves me. No one ever loves me. Really sit back and think about it. How many of those times were you having a good thing and you kind of started seeing it get serious and you self-sabotage? You ice them out. You wouldn't allow them to do for you.
Okay, so there is also us, which kind of sort of is me sometimes, who try with great people or loving people, but the minute they go off the script, we're done. And that's more of like trying to control the narrative than trying to figure out how to love each other. Like, okay, we're both good people, but something about this isn't working. So I think I'm about to just jump off this ship. And you're good, I'm good, but we can be good with other people. But I really feel like it's something that could be worked out with, communicating that. And I don't think every situation has to be, okay, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you in theory. I'm there with you, sis. I'm there with you in spirit.
I didn't know, but yeah, I used to be that way. I don't think I was, no offense, but I don't think I was as bad as you. Like, okay, I'm packed.
Yeah, I know.
I was running out with a track star, and it was I was that.
Yeah, no. I take no offense to that. I was talking to a homegirl about it. And she was just like, yeah, you just be leaving people and you don't tell us, you don't tell them. So I just don't, put too much stock into it. I figure, when someone tricks you into settling down, we'll meet them. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably how that's going to go.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
If it helps, y'all, my child is manifesting it. If it helps, because she been walking around just praying for a sibling. just praying for a sibling. And I don't even know if I told you this, that the other week I had to call her dad because she's been asking about marriage. Like she was just like, Mommy, and I'm like, what's that? What's up, babe? And she was like, why aren't you married? I was like, ooh, personal attack. What's going on here? Like, why we get the guns out? What did mommy do to deserve this?
My child literally said, I want a stepdad.
Yeah, what is going on? Yeah, because she's been like, the last couple of weeks, she's been really, really like, yeah, eventually you'll get married. I'm like, okay, sis, I get it. Like, you too have peep game, and it's like, why don't I meet people, mommy? Because I'm protecting you, child.
Exactly. She said, I'm ready.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Girl, I don't know. What's going on with these toddlers.
4, 5.
But no, she has, like, it's to the point her teachers talk to me about it. Her teachers are like, yeah, baby girl really wants a sibling. And I'm just like, baby girl don't got sibling money. I don't know why y'all keep encouraging this. But if everybody can just collectively shut it down when she says it, we would be good. You know what? I would not be surprised if my daughter, she's like, she keep communicating to me because y'all insist she be healed. If she could just do this with another person, if we could just bring another person into this so I can watch my Coco Melon in peace, that would be great.
Right.
I know she'd be tired of my bullshit forever. Just like, hey, baby, let's meditate. And she'd be like, oh, mommy, no. We are going to be a holistic household, whether you like it or not. But yes, going back to what you were saying about control, yes, this is like a big one for a lot of people who struggle with accepting love, because accepting love, there's a relinquish of an amount of control. When I'm giving love, I can control how I give love to you. I can control how much love I give to you. But when you are accepting love and you're giving love and you are allowing love to just happen, you don't have control over other people and what other people do. And so kind of like you were saying, I am like infamous for being like, you fell online, I'm good. Like I think I give off fun vibes. Like I give out a lot of like, yay, Gemini vibes, because I'm a Gemini. But y'all, I'm mostly Earth. I'm mostly Capricorn. My chart is mostly Earth. Okay. Like I have a lot of I want order in a lot of areas. There's a lot of areas I'm very free spirited in, obviously, but when it comes to my emotions, I like order. I like knowing what the emotions are. I like keeping them in neat little boxes. When they come out of boxes, I like them cut out of boxes for very specific occasions and then go right back in. And when you open yourself to love and vulnerability and intimacy, you don't have that level of control. You are opening yourself up to possible disappointment. You're opening yourself up to a lot of things. And I think a big part of that is like seeing, you not lining up with what I want. I feel control. This is what I feel comfortable with. And once you go outside that box of what I'm comfortable with, and I can't rein you back in, I can't have that control, then I'd rather leave it as a way of protecting myself. Because when you guard your emotions that highly, anything like adding another person, that person pulls the unpredictable stuff, that feels like a threat to our ego.
It does, yeah.
That feels like a threat to our makeshift sense of safety. And let's be clear, it's makeshift. It's not real safety. If anything, it's a hostage situation. You got emotional Stockholm syndrome with yourself because you're really not happy. Because a lot of times we're really not happy. And I say that as someone who up until recently was like, no, I was so happy when I did not think about my feelings. I was so happy when I was not in touch with my feelings. And now that I'm actually in touch with my feelings, I will say, it sucks. Let me be clear. I'm still team it sucks, but like I am happier. Like my happiness is when I'm happy, it's a way higher level of happy. All my feelings feel better in this zone. Even the ones that hurt feel better in this zone, because now when they're hurt, I know I can explore why they hurt, and I become more conscious of what I do with that hurt versus before when I ignore the hurt. I then start becoming unconscious of the way I'm operating and why I'm operating that way. I'm doing a whole bunch of shit and I can't explain why. Why? Well, there's some triggers. There's some stuff I have not healed that is kind of running the shit now. But when I gave up trying to control everything and kind of got to a point where I'm like, I think what the universe has for me, it has for me. And I'm willing to be a student and learn, and I'm willing to relinquish what I thought was control to learn. Life got so much more fulfilling. So yeah, I definitely, control is definitely a big one. And I will really sit and try to think like, okay, is this why I have an issue with accepting love? Because it requires me to relinquish control. And relinquishing control means getting out of my comfort zone, which scares me. Yeah. Do that emotional division. This divided by this comes to, ooh, I'm on that bullshit. Like, do your emotional division, okay? Emotional math. Yeah. It's just as horrible as real math. So then there's also low self-esteem, toxic love, and just pure codependency. And I feel like a lot of times we try to avoid this because, one, nobody wants to say they have low self-esteem. Nobody wants to say that. No one wants to say that I might think lowly about myself because, again, we're in the bad bitch era. We're in the, I'm the shit era. But I don't think we always look at low self-esteem the way that it's meant to be viewed. I think a lot of times people think low self-esteem, they think, oh, that means I'm not pretty enough, or people don't want me, and I don't think I'm the baddest chick in this room. And that is part of it as well. It can be. But also sitting and thinking, why do I feel uncomfortable? This is something both me and you have said we feel uncomfortable with. Why do I feel uncomfortable taking compliments? Why do I not feel good enough to receive praise about my work, about my worth, about who I am? That, as much as we don't want to admit, does tie into how we feel about ourselves and some sense of challenge with our worthiness that's still inside of us that we got to work through. I'm actually working through with my therapist. Currently is him helping me understand, you being your biggest critic is also a form of you struggling with your self-worth. Because when you do good, you don't feel you do good. You have to pick at it. You have to tear yourself down. You boo. I think I posted a quote earlier this week where the quote says, don't boo yourself off the stage before others even got a chance to see you. And I feel like that's something that I struggle with for a long time. Even with the both podcasts, this was an idea I had for years. And I kept talking myself out of it because I kept saying, well, who would want to hear from me? I won't be good at that. Some of our biggest episodes, I hate listening to because I hate the way my voice sounds on it. I hate the editing on it. I hate the static in it and all this stuff. And it's still our most listened to episode. And I still pick at it. I still feel like it's not good enough, even though that's the one people love the most with all that bullshit in it and all. And sitting there and having to recognize, okay, there is something about the way I see myself. Even though on one hand, I'm I'm amazing, I'm great, I'm all of this, there is still something I need to work on because I boo myself before I allow anybody else to. There's something I still need to work on because even at my best, I still critique myself even while others are giving me flowers and praise. I have to find the critique. I have to find the error. Why is that?
Just trying to understand that, yeah.
Yeah. So wrapping it up, what can we do to learn how to accept love, Neek?
One thing that we can do to allow people to love us or show their love to us is let people be there for you when you are vulnerable or feel weak or at your darkest. For me, it can be a problem sometimes. 'Cause sometimes people don't even know I'm going through things because I just don't open up about it. If it's a known thing, I try to allow people in, but it's never anything I'm comfortable with letting people do. I really did have to let everybody in when I lost my fiance, and that was very hard for me to do. A lot of my friends always say they don't know how to be there for me, and it's
Mhm.
probably because I'm putting up a wall and not allowing you to know what I'm really going through. But I was reading a book the other day, and it was just like sometimes you know that you need those people. You know you need your community. And you need to be open to it. For some reason, I started crying. So I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't allow it, but I don't know why. Like I do have a great community of friends and family, but I'm not really comfortable with letting people be there for me like I'm being there for them. But I think that goes back to just taking on the world in my family and not
Mhm.
allowing them to take on my challenges. But I think this in general, let's go back to in general. This is something that if you allow others to be there in your darkest moments and love you in those moments, I think that you will be more comfortable with it. It's a start to be more comfortable with allowing others to love you.
I agree. I definitely agree with you. Some of the other ways that you can allow yourself to be open to love is recognize where you are holding yourself back. Figure out what your emotional patterns are. Figure out what it is that you are personally doing that is preventing yourself from receiving the type of love that you actually really want and desire. Are you having issues with control? Are you actually scared of love? Even though you want it, you are low key terrified of it. Sit with yourself and think about what it is you are doing. Always start with self and then work from self outwards.
That's what it is. Forgiving past you or those who have hurt you in the past. That's a hard one.
We did an episode on forgiveness. I'm not quite there on everything on everybody. I got to be 100%. It's something they still working on me. They still working on me. I
Even forgiving myself is hard. So forgiving somebody else is even harder. So, but I try. Like I really do try. But it just comes a time sometimes I have flashbacks for some reason.
Oh, girl, I know, but um,
Yeah.
it's it's something I still struggle with, and it's not a lot. And I want to. The reason why for me is like it's really hard to get me to certain levels of like hurt or anger. So it's like very few, like there's only two that I can think of that have gotten me to that level. It's like, no, you had to jump through hoops in hell that were lit on fire to get me to that level of anger. Like that wasn't no slight. That wasn't no like you trigger some real serious type shit if you got me like I can't to the point where I'm just like I don't want to forgive them. And the good thing is like at least for me I think the good thing is I don't sit in my anger.
Right.
You know, like I'm angry, I might have a flashback, I'm angry in a flashback, then I just like, you know what, release it and then go on about my day. And it might just come up again a couple weeks later, a couple months later, a year later. And when it comes up, I might just be like, and you know, I don't want to forgive them. And then just go about my day though. But I see this all the time. I I know I've learned about forgiveness and stuff in school. The books and stuff. I'm not convinced yet, but I think y'all should do it. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. I am fighting my own demons. Y'all should do it though, okay? mm. Another one is that trust that if you allow yourself open to being loved and loving and being in a loving dynamic with another person, that hurt is still a possibility. Trust that if you get hurt, that you can also survive that hurt.
Yes. And learning to express your needs and allow them to meet them, and don't like pull back when they actually meet them, and just knowing that it's a requirement for this relationship, and knowing that it's okay that they are open to meeting those needs for you.
Yeah. Another one is believing that you deserve the type of love that you put in. And the last one I'm going to wrap up with is understand what you think love is. Get a definition for love and then normalize that definition in your life. Normalize it in the way you show it to others, and normalize it being the standard for anybody who wants to be in your life to show to you. So essentially, a lot of times the thing stopping us from allowing love is our fear. Our fear of being vulnerable, our fear of loss, our fear of giving up control, our fear of confronting ourselves, confronting our past, a fear of letting go of that past, so we're not projecting it onto new people. So, guys, that is all we have for today's episode. We hope you enjoy. You can follow us on Instagram at She Wolf Alchemy. Also, whatever platform you're listening to us on, please be sure to leave us a review. Leave us a review with words. It helps us out so much. Now, other than that, we'll have a new episode for you guys next Thursday, and we appreciate you for listening. Bye.